Hey thinkers, in my third tutorial, I'll be telling you about some of the common objects, properties and their applications. If we change the value of the property of an object, it can either change the behavior of the object or its appearance. Let us start with the properties of the form control. Instead of the alphabetic sorting of the properties, let us sort them in a categorized way. The first group of properties is appearance that are going to affect the appearance of the form. When you select a property, you get a brief description about the property at the bottom of the property pane. The first property is the appearance that can either be set to 3D or flat. It is one of the least used property. The next one is the back color that changes the background color of the form. In Visual Basic, we have two kinds of colors. The colors from the palette and that from the system. If you allot a system color to a control, then the color varies with the themes. The next property is the border style. Visual Basic offers 6 types of border styles. All of them are self-explanatory. The next property is the caption property that changes the text in the title bar of the form. The next important property is the picture property. Using this property wisely, we can give a great look to our form. To change the background picture of the form, we need to just browse the picture and then open it. Now let us proceed to the next category, that is the behavior category. The most important properties of this category are the enable property and the visible property. By an important property, I mean that they are the basic properties and are used frequently. If the enable property of a control is set to false, then the object is unresponsive to the mouse events or the keyboard events at the runtime. In the same way, if the visible property of a control is set to false, the control is invisible at the running stage. The next important category is the position category. In this category, we have height, left, top, width, and startup position as the most important properties. The default unit of distance in Visual Basic is twip. One twip is equivalent to 15th part of a pixel. You can change this unit from the scale category in the scale mode, pixels, millimeters, twips, etc. The value of the top property of a form is the distance of the form at the runtime from the top of the screen. Similarly, the left property is the distance from the leftmost of the screen. You can set the movable property of the form as false if you want to prevent users from moving the window at runtime. You can change the startup position of a form from the drop-down list box and observe the changes in the form layout window. You can even drag the form's position in the form layout window itself. Now let us proceed to the miscellaneous properties of the form. The name is the identity of the form. It can contain numbers as well as letters, but it cannot be started with a number. Every control on the form must have a unique name, including the form itself. The control box property of a form determines whether the close button or the maximize or minimize button should be displayed in the running stage of the program or not. The icon property of the form is self-explanatory. You can choose the mouse cursor of the form from the mouse pointer property. If it is set to custom, then you can choose the mouse cursor of your own choice by browsing an icon from the mouse icon property. The next important property is the show in taskbar property that is self-explanatory as well. The last important property of the form is the window state property that can either be normal or minimized or maximized. Now, let us discuss the properties of a label control. Using the alignment property, we can change the text alignment of the caption of the label. We can change to left justifier or right justifier or center. The next important property of a label control is the auto size. Using auto size, we can change the size of a label automatically to the size of its contents. When this property is set to true, see how the size of the label changes. The next important property of a label control is backstyle. Using backstyle, we can change the backstyle of a label to either transparent or opaque. We can add a border to a label using the border style property. The next important property of a label control is the font. Using this, we can change the font of the text of the label. The next one is the forecolor, using which we can change the color of the text written under a label. The next property is the tooltip text. Using the tooltip text, we can add a text displayed when the mouse is paused over the control in the running stage. The next important property is the word wrap. To understand the word wrap property, let us open a notepad. I hope you understood what is word wrap. Now, let us talk about the text box control. Let's start with the logged property of the text box. If we set this property as true, then the user cannot edit the text inside the text box in the running stage of the program. The max length property of a text box ensures that the user cannot enter more than the provided number of characters in the text box. The multi-line property of a text box enables the user to add more lines to the text box. The password character property sets a value that determines whether characters typed by a user are displayed in the control. The scroll bars property sets a value indicating whether an object has vertical or horizontal scroll bars or both. The tab stop property determines whether the user can set the focus on the text box using the tab key. The tab index property is the number or order or rank of the text box in which it receives the focus upon pressing of tab. Now let's proceed to the command button control. Let's start with the cancel and default properties of the command button. If a command button is set as default button, then in most cases the user can press enter to click on that command button. Similarly, if a command button is set as cancel button, the user can press escape key on their keyboard to click on that button. Only one control on a form can be a cancel button or a default button. We can make our command button look better by changing the style of it from standard to graphical. After setting it to graphical, we can change the back color of the command button. We can also set a picture for our command button if we set the style property to graphical. Remember that we cannot change the forecolor of the command button. The last topic for today's lesson is the access keys. We can give an access key to a command button or any control by typing an ampersand symbol before the character that we want to allot the access key. Now the user can click on this command button by pressing Alt plus C. So these were the basic properties of the basic controls. See you in the next tutorial.